Welcome to Tramlines, a podcast from Agrii. I'm your host, Tony Smith, putting your questions to the experts. Spring crop decisions. How do we get the timing right with a focus on precision and nutrition? And will that lead to better results? Well, let's ask the experts. And today we're joined by Ben Foster, Product Manager at RHIZA, and Agrii's Gavin Stewart, Fertiliser Product Manager for Scotland, and George Proctor, Contracting Operations Manager. And so, Ben, let's come to you for the first question, but can you set the scene? Why is it important to apply nutrition with precision?
So, nitrogen prices have been rising for a little while now, and the expectation is with the introduction of the CBAM fertiliser tax, both in Europe this year and then in the UK next year, that prices will continue to rise, or certainly will never be as cheap as they have been in the past. It's obviously a very valuable input. It's got very good return on investment when applying to a field. But I think the days of just blanket spreading, throwing nitrogen at the job and getting a good crop yield are sort of gone. We need to make sure that we are using that product as efficiently as possible on each field within the farm. And yeah, some of the best approaches to that, I guess we'll talk about today with regards to variable nitrogen and using liquid applications.
And Gavin, do you think that farmers are getting the most from the nutrients that they are applying to their crops? What are your thoughts?
I think when you look at NUE, I think the figure's around about 60%, so that suggests we could be better at it, Tony. A few things potentially we could do when it comes to liquids, maybe the use of an inhibitor in there. Likes of Agrii's Liqui Safe has been proven to increase nitrogen use efficiency from UAN by around 15%.
So in some cases, what Gavin is saying there is that some farmers are only getting 60% use efficiency from that nitrogen that they are applying. Ben, what could they be getting?
So, wow, what's the optimum? I suppose is 100%, you could argue. But in our digital technology farms trials, which we're running across the country, from Scotland into Lincolnshire and down into Essex, we've seen you could get anywhere from sort of 50%, but right up to 70-75% from taking a variable approach to applying your nitrogen, which, you know, that's arguably 15% more of your nitrogen is actually being used by your crop and not potentially being washed away into the waterways.
George, let's bring you in here. Your world of work is contracting. How do your team get it right when it comes to applying nutrition to crops?
I think you've got to take careful consideration into the conditions, not only on the day, but running up. If the wax is off the leaf, that can leave the plant a bit more vulnerable to fertiliser applications. Along with that, the pressure in which we apply fertiliser has an impact as well. It can create mechanical damage on the plant. So lower pressures certainly help to alleviate that stress on the plant too.
And so, Ben, where do farmers start in terms of applying these products at the right time and with more precision?
So I think obviously a good start, we've got the contracting team on here, is using a liquid product over a solid, which is known for its increase in accuracy in terms of application. But from a variable rate perspective, in terms of sort of altering that application across the field, it's looking at satellite imagery. And the important thing I always say is understanding that satellite image. People often look at it and assume red is bad and green is good. And that's not necessarily the case. Red could just be a bit of crop that needs to get going, or it could be a 6-ton crop versus an 8 or a 9-ton crop. And that's a really important point I like to get across to farmers, is that don't think red is no crop. It still deserves a level of nitrogen. It's just then ground truthing that. And that could be your agronomist walking the field along with the farmer and understanding what the yield potential of that part of the field is. Or that could be utilising, which we are already doing on our digital technology farms, utilising drones, some of these handheld nitrogen sensors, and indeed the tractor-mounted nitrogen sensors to understand actually how much nitrogen is in the crop, how much does that crop need to achieve our expected target yield for that crop, and therefore that we can lay out our plans for nitrogen for the season even before we get to application.
And that all sounds great, but if I'm a farmer listening today, the question I might ask is, well, I'm not using that approach currently. How do I do that? How do I use that technology to take advantage of the benefits?
So any farm that's on our Contour digital platform has access for free to satellite imagery. So that's coming from Sentinel-2, which is a standard satellite that most people use. And we also have our Clear Sky cloud-free alternative, which uses a radar-derived approach and guarantees an image a week. I would say when it comes to drones, that's a relatively new tech. We are deliberately trialing that on our technology farms because we want to understand how that works to then bring it to the farmer. But I would say more and more I'm seeing farms have basic drones, and all you need is a basic drone that can take a photograph. And what they tend to do is take photos of or pretty pictures of the combine in the summer and the sprayer running in the spring. So actually, can we start using that drone to see a benefit when it comes to on-farm applications of nitrogen, amongst other things?
We started the podcast talking about that efficiency of utilisation and how it could be even better in some situations. How about liquid fertilisers? What improvements could you see? Gavin, what are you seeing?
I think in a lot of situations, liquid, particularly last spring, we saw dry length of the UK. So that's where we saw liquid fertiliser perform quicker in that scenario against solid.
And George, on the contracting side, what trends, what changes are you seeing? Is there a trend towards more liquid?
There's certainly been a growth in the last few years moving towards liquid. It usually helps farmers move to bigger tram lines. Again, less tram lines increasing yield. And when you get a couple of dry years and the sprayers start running through crops and we can still see the granule on the floor and the liquid's already in the soil, you can see a bit of a difference.
And if we're talking about improving crop utilisation from this nutrition that's expensive to apply, Gavin, what else can we do?
Yeah, well, we've across 42 winter wheat trials, just by the addition of putting in Liqui Safe with liquid fertiliser, we had a 4% yield increase.
Say again, what was that percentage?
4% yield increase in 42 winter wheat trials with the inclusion of Liqui Safe inhibitor into liquid fertiliser applications, Tony.
Yeah, and that's really significant, isn't it, Gavin? Ben, how does George's team as a contractor help the grower?
I think a key part of it is the fact that all of the sprayers are set up for variable rate nitrogen, so that it's something that often farmers may not have access to. They might have a spreader that's capable, but they haven't got the GPS kit on the tractor or whatever that scenario is. So one of the advantages of getting a contract spraying team is that they are geared up to do that application, and that could potentially lead either to yield benefits to the farmer or to a cost saving on nitrogen, which helps to offset again some of that cost of contract spraying. So I think that's a really important piece. The other advantage of liquid that I always see when making variable applications is it allows you potentially to front load your applications a bit more. If you include an inhibitor like Liqui Safe that prevents leaching and losses to the atmosphere, you can get a good slug of nitrogen on early in the season, let the plant do its thing, get hold of that nitrogen, get growing, and then look at the second or possibly third application to actually go ahead and vary that crop. And the reason being, I can look at a yield map in the summer, and that will often match a satellite image from the end of March or very early April. So I feel that the variation is set in a wheat crop in particular as you get to the end of March into April, when you would be going for that second or getting on for third applications in a wheat crop. I can have confidence then that if I am potentially holding back a little bit of nitrogen on one of the poorer looking parts of the field, that isn't going to impact yield.
Thanks, Ben. And what I'm hearing there is that obviously flexing your timing and being accurate with your timing is as always very important. And George, I'm sure your team are always ready to help when it comes to that workload at that time of year.
Definitely. We certainly help out in the busy times of the year. Changeable weather might pile jobs up altogether. One of the easy things to do is to phone us and we can come and help.
And Gavin, I can see you nodding in agreement. What would you like to add?
Ben and George have talked about the spraying fleet there, but sprayers, out of all the equipment for applying fertiliser, have one of the lowest coefficients of variation. So again, with liquid being such an accurate product, go to field margins. Liquid results in one of the most accurate nutrient deliveries you can get.
For more information to help you deliver efficient nutrition to your crops, leading to even better results, visit RHIZAdigital.co.uk. And for more on liquid fertiliser, visit agrii.co.uk/our-services/fertiliser. So Gavin, as a product manager, how would you sum up the benefits as you see it with considering using liquid fertiliser?
Having that discussion round about the environmental parts, we've talked about the economics of it as well, where flexible purchasing throughout the year with a tank there, you can order your fertiliser and you don't have to take delivery of it until you need it. So it has a wide sort of comparison to solid now. The NS, nitrogen sulfur options, are slightly limited, where liquid, you can have all sorts of different formulations of N to S ratio. So these type of things for varying crops from rape to wheat, different sulfur application, Tony, is another big positive that's around liquid as well.
So Gavin, there's some really useful aspects of using liquid fertiliser, aren't there?
Yeah. By using all the tools we've got there, Tony, using the correct products, starting with liquid because it has this sort of 3 forms of nitrogen there, so it can be fast acting. Putting in the Liqui Safe inhibitor to stop the pathway losses there, using the contour tools we have available with satellite imagery. All these steps and the jigsaw looking right through can lead to that as well.
Thanks, Gavin. That's a really helpful summary there. Ben, can we go back to how we improve and focus on precision of our application and where we're putting this nutrition? Talk us through where a farmer could start, and maybe if we're already using these tools, how we could use them even better.
Yeah, so at a very basic level, we are looking at a satellite image, and that will show up a snapshot of variation in that field. And we then need to make a decision. Are we putting, or the age-old question with variable nitrogen is, do we put more on the good areas or more on the poor areas? And I would say there's still no definitive answer to that, but certainly we have trials running this year, and we did last year to try and answer some of that question. And previously we have seen, you can throw a lot of nitrogen at a bad area of the field in January or in sort of February time, and it will tiller, but not necessarily lead to yield. So I think I like the approach of like I say, front loading, putting a little bit more on at the start, getting the crop going, and then later on in the season, taking that approach of putting more on the slightly better parts of the field. And we do that through Contour. So Contour allows us to manipulate that satellite image and apply different rates based on the variation on that satellite image. We can also use things like polygons to some of the bad years we've had in the last 2 or 3 years, we've been polygoning out the worst parts of the field and applying no nitrogen to that because there was no crop where it's been sat underwater. And we can then export GPS files that are suitable to any major equipment. So obviously our own sprayers, but also any kit that farmers are using, we can export shape files and ISO XML task data files that suit all scenarios really. So Contour really is the biggest driver of that, which, like I say, is our digital platform, probably followed by our network of RHIZA specialists right the way across the country.
And George, I'm listening to Ben going, more technology, IT, I'm useless at that. Is it easy to use?
It's very easy to use. It's a USB stick, or I think you can even now do it from the computer. We upload a map onto the screen in the sprayer, select on the map, and it brings up all the rates that we need to apply on that field. Very simple.
Thanks, George. And that really is good news, particularly coming from yourself as you're running so many sprayers. Ben, one of the real issues for growers is being able to get on the land due to the weather. I know that RHIZA, you have a product offering there. How can you help?
Yeah, so we offer something that we refer to as hyperlocal weather data. It's virtual weather data, so we haven't got physical weather stations on farm, but it's a model that ingests weather data from various sources. So, for example, I'm not far from Stansted Airport. They have very good quality weather data. That is ingested by a third party alongside everything all the way down to your digital rain gauge in your garden that's pinging to a satellite, so you can see it on your phone. They're probably buying that data in as well. That then gets analysed, and we get a result or a weather forecast, and also actual weather data on kilometre square tiles across the country. Now, if you're a big contracting business, you might have 20 or 30 miles sometimes between one farm and the other. And actually, that could be a big difference in the amount of rainfall or weather conditions from one farm to the other. So understanding where weather and rainfall in particular has come in is really important for then directing your fleet to the best place to go. Weather stations themselves can be expensive, and whilst we Agrii do have a network of our own weather stations, the ability to have this hyper-local virtual weather data on every farm in Contour, and it is unique to each farm within Contour, it is incredibly valued. I think we mentioned earlier about the importance of timing of applications, making sure that you do catch those weather windows, be it when it's a little bit drier this time of year, or actually where we've had these dry springs, you catch that little bit of moisture and use the liquid then to make sure it does get into the soil and into a position that the plant can take it up.
And as we come towards the end of this podcast, as we always do, we ask for your top tips. And Gavin, perhaps you could go first and share your top tips to help those who are listening today to get the best out of their nutrition for their crops this approaching spring.
Probably taking the risk management out of it. We've talked a lot about different things here, but you look at the variables and weather, Tony. So when applying liquid, if we've done what we're going to say here, looking at biomass, variable rate applications, done everything that we can possibly do to try and take these risks out. I think utilising and liquid, putting in that inhibitor in there, just to sort of, Ben said, front load that, get more N on at the start, and that protects it, keeps the nitrogen where it's needed.
And George, you manage a busy contracting operation. What would be your top tips you would like to share?
To get the best use out of liquid fertiliser, you've got to consider the conditions you're applying it in, not just on the day, but prior to that day as well. If you are struggling, certainly give us a shout if we operate within your area, and we can see what we can do to help. But I would also make the important point that it is a way to be a busy season, and you should keep on top of your health and safety and make sure it's a forefront in your mind as well.
And Ben, we're going to leave the final words to you. No pressure at all, but what would you urge growers to do? What's going to really help? Margins are tighter. The weather doesn't give us many opportunities. What would be your top tips that people can take away to consider?
Yeah, no pressure at all. I think for me, it's if you've got the capability to vary product on farm, or if you are utilising a contract spraying service such as our own, do get yourself signed up to a platform like Contour and start looking at and understanding the satellite imagery that's available. It's a really powerful tool that we do serve up for free to our customers, and then look to make some meaningful change off the back of that on farm. There's a lot of people like to collect data sometimes and don't do anything with it. Actually, let's utilise that data potentially to see some improvement in yield, or indeed improvements in gross margin, where we might be saving a bit of product on farm.
Thank you, Ben, Gavin and George, for your important seasonal advice for spring nutrition with precision. Do stay tuned here on Tramlines with recent episodes on crop resilience, varieties, nutrition and much, much more. If you have any questions for our experts that you would like answered, email them into info@agrii.co.uk. That's it for this podcast, but do tune in again as we meet the experts throughout the season, exploring the many immediate and longer term questions for growers and farmers in the UK. See you next time.